Ah, I can see myself. Hey, can everyone see me and hear me? Are we live? Hey. Check. If everyone wants to... awesome. Thank you. Bit of a delay on these right here, but how are we all doing? We good? It's Sunday morning here in Brisbane, and I am just finishing my breakfast. Sorry. So we're going to be talking about the A7 IV, and obviously other cameras. Sony Alpha rumors has actually brought up as well, which is interesting, but I don't know if is true. We all know that obviously Sony Alpha rumors, it's just a rumor site, so you never know if they're actually 100% correct or 90%, 80%, 50%, whatever. We really don't know if they're correct, but yeah, I really wanted to talk about the A7 IV today. In the last video that I actually released, and that was the A7 IV versus the FX6, and I had a lot of positive feedback, but there was actually one video channel that I don't know if you guys have watched. DSLR Video Shooter, Caleb from DSLR Video Shooter. He did a A7 IV versus A7S3, and he showed pretty much very similar stuff that I show in terms of the quality of the A7 IV camera compared to the A7 III sensor, and the upsides and downsides of why you would get one or the other was very similar to my FX6 video. I just had a lot more I suppose detail into using it on a professional film set as opposed to just regular side-by-side comparisons. But it was interesting. Go check that one out if you really want. Okay, so let's jump through who is in here. We've got 17 people in here, so it's pretty decent. It's good. We got Izzy Doe, yo, Mr. Camera Junkie, Pauls, James Coburn. How are you doing, man? Richard and Gloria Sullivan. Is it Mosley? 11:05 p.m. in London. Yeah, I know. I just watched the Liverpool game. I think it was 7 hours ago. That was a great game. What else we got? So, any questions to do with the Sony A7 IV? Where's my phone? I did post this in on my Instagram as well. So if you aren't following me on Instagram, Jason Morris Photo Cinema on Instagram, if you do want to check out a lot of BTS stuff and pretty much a lot of, I suppose I asked a lot of questions on Instagram as well. Nicholas, what's up, man? K Vapen, midnight in Norway. Midnight. Why did I choose 9 a.m. then? I should have done a little bit earlier. Thanks for staying up at midnight. What are you doing up at midnight? It's pretty crazy. So we'll jump into a few questions on my Instagram. Oh wow, these ones are like, 2 of them are in French. Cannot read that. Here we go. Here's one. James, you've popped up right here. What is one bucket list type shoot you want to be on in your life? So bucket list types of shoot. That's interesting. So I'd really love to be on a really large commercial set. But mainly, I would love to shoot some pretty exotic cars in a commercial shoot. But obviously, like a story-based commercial, and not just having a car rig and shooting on a car rig, but pretty interested in cars. So that would be a pretty cool shoot. But obviously, having myself as potentially a director, and then having a DP and producer and a full, gaffer, a full team, grip team as well. That would be really cool. Just Chris, Martinique. Where's Martinique? I have no idea. 7 p.m. How you doing, man? Mike Yu from Japan. I love Japan. This is the last international place we went to before the lockdown. We came back in 2019. Japan's amazing. We went all the way through Tokyo, and I don't know, a few other places. That's pretty cool. Let's jump into these questions anyway. Yeah, okay, that's not really a question. How are you, bro? Miami and Florida. Camera junkie. What's up? 6 p.m. It's good timing. It's good time. 6 p.m. on a Saturday, right? Sunday here. Anyone got questions for the A7 IV while I go through these questions on Instagram? This one just says please and thanks from the UK. Interesting. Aloha, Honolulu, Doc Rock. Is Premiere Pro good? That's an interesting question. So I know a lot of people have been getting some flack or getting some problems on Premiere Pro. And I honestly haven't had many problems since that 2022 upgrade. There was that transition phase when they went from 2021 Adobe Premiere Pro and then tried to switch over 2022. And there was so many problems when that switch was happening. But now it hasn't actually shut down at all, which is very interesting for Premiere Pro. So they've been doing good. Whatever they've done on the newest upgrade, good job. But one of my friends was having some issues with the iPhone footage put into the Premiere Pro because it was a .mov file. Premiere Pro doesn't really like .movs, and it was coming back really washed out. So yeah, there's still obviously bugs in Premiere Pro. Okay, we got one here from Nicholas. What is your battery setup? Do you use V-mount batteries and to get around overheating issues? Yes, so on the A7 IV or even on the FX6, I use V-mount batteries. So you can see this one right here. This is, if I can cover my face. So this is the IDX Tech V-mount battery. These are really, really powerful. This one is a pretty small one. It's a 135 watt hour. Definitely handy. So I actually use this on the A7 IV as well. And that actually takes care of a lot of overheating issues because when it comes to the battery heats up quite a lot in the A7 IV in all Sony Alpha cameras. And that's what generates a lot of the heat. And some people could be getting overheating issues because of that battery is heating up. And if you actually have external power, you're going to be cutting back a lot of that heat. And yeah, having V-mount batteries definitely does help with that one. All right, we got one here. Do you think the battery situation is going to be fixed with the firmware update? It eats batteries. Yeah, honestly, I haven't used a full shoot with the basic batteries, the actual Sony batteries, but like all powerful cameras, it does eat up the batteries. You know, it is what it is. I don't know if you saw Peter McKinnon's last video on the R5C, the Canon R5C, that he packed like 8 batteries for him and Maddie to shoot. And he's like, I used up almost all of them in the space of 3 hours because the R5C was just so hungry for power that it just chewed it all up. So yeah, generally powerful cameras will eat up batteries. That's why you invest in external power like a V-mount battery. Oliver, how you doing? Worth getting the Sony A7 IV and using it mainly as an APS-C camera. Oh, that is really interesting. I currently own a lot of APS-C lenses. Would love if Sony made a high-end APS-C camera. I've been wanting this for so long, a high-end APS-C camera. Like I said in my last stream or a few other videos, that the last high-end APS-C camera that Sony have released is the FS5 and the FS7, and they are still phenomenal cameras today. Because they can do, you know, up to 4K 120 frames per second, which is awesome still. And obviously slow motion, I think it's 960 frames per second, but the image quality is still fabulous in those cameras. But using the Sony A7 IV as an APS-C camera can definitely be done, especially because APS-C mode has less rolling shutter. It does seem to have less dynamic range. I think CineD tested very slightly less, but using it as an APS-C camera, you absolutely can. There is absolutely no problems with that because you can throw it into APS-C crop mode. You do have 7K sensor downsampled to 4K, so you're not really losing too much resolution there because when it comes to video, sensor resolution doesn't really matter too much. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting one, and I still would probably recommend using it as an APS-C camera. You'd get away with it perfectly fine. Thanks for that question, Oliver. Ooh, they're all coming in hot and fast now. Lucas, how are you, my man? Hope you're doing well. Whereabouts are you from? All right, Doc Rock, just rename the .mov file and use the basic HDR. Oh yeah, okay, that's cool. I'll pass that one on. I haven't tried renaming the file. Is it just renaming the file? Man, Premiere Pro, what are you doing? It's a killer. Mosley, Chowdhury, is that how you say your name? If the A7S3 got firmware updates equal to that of the A7 IV, would it be enough to make you switch to the A7S3? No. The reason why I won't switch to the A7S3 is I had the A7S3 and I did upgrade to the FX6, and it's relatively the same sensor. It does produce a slightly different image, the FX6, the A7S3, but there wouldn't be a point for me to personally to get the A7S3 because the FX6 does everything plus some that the A7S3 does, and the A7 IV fills those gaps that the FX6 can't do. So there wouldn't be a point for me to get the A7S3. But yeah, some of those firmware updates in the A7 IV would be interesting to see in the A7S3, like focus mapping and focus breathing compensation. So breathing compensation. So those two are pretty, I suppose, good features to have in the A7S3 if they, could release that. Arthritic one. Oh, thank you. Lucas asked another question. Which lens would you recommend for the Sony A7 IV? Okay. Am I shooting on it right now? No, I'm not. It's right there. Hold one second. I'm back. This one. This is my absolute favorite lens to shoot with. It's the 35 f1.4 G Master lens. This one is my go-to. I have it on the camera pretty much all the time. I'm shooting on the 24 G Master right now, but this one is fabulous. Yes, the focus breathing does suck, but the A7 IV has breathing compensation, which fixes that. But other than that, the image quality is incredible. The bokeh is beautiful. Just the focal length itself, 35 millimeters on a full frame, is my favorite, especially if you pair it with your APS-C crop mode as well. So you can, get almost a 50 millimeter out of that as well. So that's really cool. But if you can't afford, obviously, the G Master, Gerald Undone did a video on the 35 f1.8. So check that one out because the image quality is almost the same. You are losing a little bit of light, but for a fraction of the cost, you can get a fabulous Sony lens there. All right, so we move on to the next one. Would you recommend? Here's one. Darius. How you doing, my man? Recommend the CF Express Type A or V90 SD card? So it really depends on which camera you're actually using. Have I got one in here? No. I prefer the CF Express Type A's. They're faster and you have absolutely no problems with whatever camera you're using that does accept it. But when it comes to the V90 cards, you just have to make sure that you get a decent one. I use ProGrade. ProGrade's a really good brand. They have produced some pretty good cards in the past, and I haven't had any issues with that one. But the FX6 does accept more cards, especially if you do want to shoot in your all-eye codec. You can use V60 cards in the FX6, whereas the the A7S3, the A7 IV, and the FX3 do not accept V60 cards in your all-eye codec. They actually force you to get V90, which is kind of weird, but I suppose you pay the kind of money for the cinema camera that you should be able to use almost any card. So Doc Rock said APS-C crop on the A7 IV is pretty solid. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. A7IV only outputs 10-bit over HDMI. Have you found yourself in a situation where you wish you had more color depth? Absolutely not at the moment. 10-bit is almost more than enough you need on any professional set. Yes, 12-bit would be absolutely amazing because you do have a little bit more colors to work with. But when it comes from 8-bit, I think it's like 16 million different colors. 10 bits like 1 billion different colors. So you do have a massive gap between 8-bit and 10-bit. So pretty much most professional cameras nowadays will be 10-bit and on. I think a lot of professional film sets will use 12-bit codec. Like Ari's use, I think it's 4444. In 12-bit, I think it really depends on what you're shooting, but yeah, 10-bit's still perfectly fine for color grading. Honestly, I've been using on the A7 8-bit. I've been using S-Log3 in this quite a lot recently, and even color grading on this is actually okay. Like, it's not as bad as what a lot of people make it out. Yeah, you do. I'm not sure what that noise is. Hopefully you can't hear it, but you do get a lot of skin tone issues if you do shoot up nice and close with 8-bit and S-Log3. Hutch TV said there is less rolling shutter in 4K 50 in that crop mode. Oh, that's a question. Yes, there is. There is less rolling shutter, mainly for the fact that when you do crop in on that sensor on the A7 IV, it's not processing as much because you've got a 7K that has to downsample to 4K. But when you crop in, it's not using, I think it's like a 4.6K and downsamples to 4K. So it's less downsampling. So you're going to get a faster readout of that sensor and less rolling shutter. But honestly, rolling shutter is one thing that you won't really notice. It all depends on how you're shooting. If you are literally whipping your camera around like this or some crazy music video, yeah, maybe you're going to be seeing rolling shutter. But a lot of my professional commercials, I have not had any issues with rolling shutter. That's just a big thing that a lot of YouTubers have brought up in the past, mainly because when people vlog, they will vlog like this and their hands are shaky, and then they'll be whipping around like this, and you will definitely notice the rolling shutter. So that's generally from YouTubers. That's not from the professional world. But professional world, you generally have global shutter sensors, but you won't really notice that rolling shutter anyway. All right. Yes, that is true. So just Chris said FX3's ProRes RAW is very different from the FX6 ProRes RAW. So they do record, the sensor does record slightly different, and they do process internally different as well. So on the FX6, you can actually choose 3 different noise suppressions, which is really cool. And I would love for that to be in the A7S3 and the FX3 for you to able to choose how much noise reduction you want done in camera. But if you do record ProRes RAW on these cameras, it's recording exactly what the sensor is putting out. So if the sensor is noisy itself, you're going to be getting all that noise. So that is a bit of a downfall when it comes to recording RAW out of the FX6, the A7S3, and the FX3. You do get a lot of noise because it is actually a noisy sensor. And a lot of people have been making these videos recently as well. And I've made plenty of these videos about the FX3, A7S3 being a noisy sensor. And it's true, the A7 IV is cleaner under low light situations. It is because you do have that 7K downsampling, which looks better because it's compressing all those pixels together. But yeah, you just got to be aware of when you do shoot RAW in these cameras that there is going to be that noise. Richard B, how you doing? Late to join. It's all right. We're only halfway through, I think. Okay, so D-Rock said the 24 GM and the new Tamron have been amazing so far. So I haven't actually used the Tamron one yet. I used to do a lot of work with Tamron, but they tried to send me a few lenses recently. I just haven't really had time to make those reviews. So I should probably get back onto Tamron because they are releasing some pretty damn good lenses. I think the great thing about Tamron as well is that they're partially owned by Sony. So a lot of these lenses will be performing perfectly on your Sony cameras because Sony and Tamron will be talking to each other and allowing, technology to be passed through, especially when it comes to autofocus performance. So it almost performs like a native lens. If anything, it does perform like a native lens in autofocus. I like the look of ProGrade. Yeah, so when it comes to back to the cards, Richard, the ProGrade, they're little silver ones. Anyway, let's move on. What else we got? So I'm just going to skip through a few, try and see the questions. Okay, so here's one here, electronics and randomness. So the Sigma 24 to 70 f2.8, but it's a bit heavy for my overhead rig, mostly need wide end. Would you recommend Viltrox 24 f1.8? One sec. This is it. So this is what electronics and randomness is talking about. So this is the Viltrox 24mm f1.8. This is a fabulous lens. I put this up against my 24 G Master lens, and man, it does so well. I was really surprised. Obviously, it's an f1.8, so you don't get as much light in as an f1.4. Bokeh is slightly different. The sharpness is slightly different. Obviously, the G Master is tack sharp and perfect, but for the price, it's like, I think it was what, 350 US, quote me if I'm wrong. But man, such good value, this lens. It's amazing. You should check out the review. I did a review, so yeah. Jan B, been watching content for a while. Thank you very much. I hope you are enjoying it. Pierre Montclair, what is the best versatile lens for the A7 IV? The best really is subjective and it really depends on budget. But if you are going on budget, you're probably looking at the Tamron 28 to 75 f2.8 in the G2, so the newest one. Otherwise, the Sigma 24 to 70 f2.8 is an absolute beast, tack sharp edge to edge. James Rafferty said, when will Sony release focus map for the other cameras? Exactly. They didn't release focus mapping in the FX6 in the latest firmware, which I do feel like is a professional feature. And I did mention that in my last video. I don't know why they didn't release it in the FX6 or they haven't released it in the FX9. Focus mapping is phenomenal because it's, if you know what focus peaking is, it gives you like red or white lines, whatever color you choose. Sometimes you could just be like that inch out and you don't even know and you're just not sharp enough. And focus mapping actually seems to be more accurate in my opinion, especially when it comes to long distance stuff. Okay. Yeah, okay. So Richard B said, I'd like to think the 24 to 105 f4G OSS is a good option. So I do have that lens. I usually use that with the FX6 because it does have OSS, but with the alpha bodies have Ibis, so you don't really need OSS. But it is good to have because it does work with the Ibis as well. But, it is an f4, so that is unfortunate if you are shooting in lower light situations or after that, really shallow depth of field. Hutch TV, have you been leaving steady shot on most of the time? Absolutely. I have Ibis pretty much on all the time. Obviously, if I am on a gimbal, I turn Ibis off though. If it's on a car rig, which I haven't put on a car rig yet, you turn Ibis off. But yeah, Ibis generally stays on. Really depends on the situation. Sometimes Ibis does kick around a little bit and you do notice it, but if you are quite steady in your hands, you probably get away with it. But because I do rig my camera out quite heavy as well, it does have a little bit more stability when it comes to handheld sort of work. But if you are just, basic by itself, you are succumb to a little bit more vibrations through that one. That's funny. Many YouTubers complain because it generates views. Yeah, absolutely. Every YouTuber loves to complain about something. I mean, I've done it in the past. That's for sure. What about the Takina 500mm? Interesting. So I don't do any wildlife photography, so I haven't really needed the longer, sorry, focal length. So Takina 500, I actually haven't tested it. I've tested the Tamron. What was it? The 150 to 500 or 150 to 400. Tamron did send that one through to me, and I did a review on it, and that was amazing. I absolutely loved it. If you do push right into that full focal length, and you get so much background separation, it's crazy. How are the Rokinon Samyang autofocus lenses? I actually haven't tried any of the Rokinon Samyang autofocus lenses. I will try and get my hands on some because they have been pretty decent in the past with their manual focus lenses. But yeah, can't comment on that one. Sorry, Pierre. Love your content. Just letting you know, the live streaming doesn't sound. Oh, okay. The sync doesn't sound. All right. So there's probably a bit of a delay or something. Do you use gyro stabilization when Ibis is off? So yeah, if I do end up turning Ibis off, I will use gyro. But it really depends on the situation and why I actually need to use gyro. A lot of times when I do have an Ibis on and I need that extra stability, I just use warp stabilizer in Premiere Pro because that definitely does work quite well, depending obviously what kind of shots you do have. But warp stabilizer certainly does work well. So Nicholas Savanko said the Takina 500 is supposed to be not as sharp. Okay, it's interesting. I have experienced a couple of Takina lenses before, but not that long of a focal length, so can't really comment. But thanks for your input there, Nicholas. If you jack up the contrast sharpness, you can get away with it. Yeah, sure. All right. So Nash Hall said, I leave Ibis on. I have more trouble with micro jitters from my Weeble S. Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting because the Weeble S that I have as well has a lot of micro jitters. It's not completely steady. Even the Zhuin Crane 3S, my bigger one, if you can see in the background over there, that does have a lot of micro jitters when I put the FX6 on, but I just throw warp stabilizer over the top and that generally fixes it. But if you leave Ibis on, perfectly fine. It still works. Sometimes it does just fight against the movement of a gimbal, but it really, really, really depends on the situation. I was going to get this Samyang 24 f1.8. Yeah, so I didn't mention that in my video of the Viltrox 2418. That's the Samyang is pretty much the same price as this thing, and it would be really interesting to test the two because this one performed phenomenal. It's almost like a G Master. It's so good. But yeah, Samyang hopefully should be very similar. I'd imagine. Jonathan said, have you ever tried other cinema lenses like IRIX? No, I wanted to get my hands on some of the IRIX lenses because they're actually quite budget friendly for cinema lenses. But yeah, I'd really like to get my hands on it. But other than that, I've used the Sony Zeiss lenses. When it comes to cinema lenses, I've used the Zine. The Zine lenses are thick. They're so big. The Zine lenses are, yeah, they're average. They're actually pretty much the same as, I think they're owned by Rokinon and Samyang. Zine. They're almost like a rehoused photography lens, is what I've heard. In terms of cinema lenses, the Makey lenses, I use these ones, and these for the price, you can't beat them. They are absolute phenomenal performance, tack sharp, edge to edge, and just everything about them. Build quality, phenomenal. Yeah, okay, so just Chris said, kind of off topic, but I recently found out that the A7S3 slash FX3 Ibis is quite a bit less natural. Yeah, so Lumix or Panasonic has been known to have better Ibis for almost forever. But Ibis isn't everything, especially when it comes to the professional world. But if you do want, perfectly stable footage, you just go a gimbal. It's a pure fact there. But Sony Ibis isn't the greatest. Canon Ibis apparently is worse because you do get a lot of warping and wobbling. But it really depends on the operator as well. That is the biggest key factor in this one. So what variable ND are you using on your lenses? Why did you choose this one? So Zalex said that one. Okay. So do I have them on me? I got one here. This isn't this one, but if you've probably seen Freewell before. This one is my older one, but I use generally Freewell. But I just got sent the Nisi ones, which I have been testing, and spoiler alert, they're better. This one right here. So this is the Nisi True Color. So I have been testing out this whole True Color and the color shifting. Freewell do tend to have a bit of a warm shift to their colors, whereas this one pretty much is natural. But other than that, FX6 has internal NDs, so I don't use NDs on that one. But yeah, this one, the review will be coming out hopefully this week. But this is definitely one to consider, Nisi. So I use the Nisi Pro Mist filters to obviously cut back on that, digital sharpness and give that sort of bloom sort of look. But yeah, these are the ND filters that I use currently. Hi Rebel, is that how you say it? Your reels have been popping up lately. Yeah, I've been actually really focusing on reels at the moment on Instagram and building up my profile, and it's been working quite well. Yeah, because obviously we are digital content creators, so we do need to stay relevant in the industry. And so far, I'm up to 24. Does it say 24? 23. 23K followers on Instagram because I have been focusing on reels quite a lot. And I did release a video on YouTube how to, increase your following and engagement on Instagram. So that's a good video to check out as well. Just gonna have a quick sip of coffee. F Note producer, South Africa checking in. What's up? James Rafferty said, have you tried the Tilta Float? Any thoughts compared to your rig? Okay, so Tilta Float, if people don't know, is very similar to like the RE Trinity sort of style. So essentially you're putting a gimbal on top of a Steadicam. My version, I have digital photo and phenomenal, great performance. But the Tilta does seem to bring out better quality equipment. But yeah, it really depends on what you're going for in terms of budget and what you need it for as well. But I haven't personally tried the Tilta Float. Okay, so Nash Hale said, I use the Nisi Variable Pro. Super happy with them. There's no color cast. Yeah, so that's what I've been finding so far, that there has been, there's a very small difference in color. There is a very slight color cast, but it's not anything noticeable. And then when it comes to color grading, what kind of drone do you use for commercial work? So there's only been a couple of times where I've used the Mavic 3. So I've actually borrowed the Mavic 3, but I've also borrowed the Air 2S. So I am friends with a manager that's a local DJI store, and yeah, I just borrow it if I do need to shoot. But I don't use my Mini 2 for commercials. It's a little bit over sharpened, but it's not very common that I get a lot of drone shots in my commercials anyway. Oh, so apparently High Rebel is the king of Norwegian real estate. Cool. We got a bit of royalty in here. That's cool. Well, so what can you advise someone who wants to start a small production business? Okay. That's a really, really good question. So, starting a production business is a very difficult thing. But the biggest thing is, uh, I suppose, branding, trying to create your own brands, trying to create your own look, but also marketing yourself out there as well and getting to know people in the industry. But still, you don't have to know people in the industry. You can just contact small businesses and try and help grow their brand and building your portfolio that way. But yeah, building your portfolio is probably one of the biggest things as well because you do need to showcase what you can do so people can be like, yeah, hey, he's good. I'm gonna obviously hire him for his work. So yeah, that's probably one of the biggest tips. Off topic, as a health enthusiast myself, you look pretty healthy. Do you have a home gym or work out a local commercial gym? Yeah, so I, it is very off topic, but it happens a lot in my videos. But I do work out at a local gym. Pretty much been in the gym industry, gym game for uh, 17 years, I think now. I was a PT for 12 years. But yeah, I keep quite healthy when it comes to that one. Back onto cameras. Sargon, YouTube channel. Hello, I'm very confused about buying the A7 IV or Canon R6 for main video, then photo. Could you explain me, please? So obviously English is not your first language. So hi, I hope you can understand me. But the A7 IV is a completely different beast. If you are choosing between Sony and Canon, you really need to understand what you're using it for and what lenses you're looking to buy, because if you do invest in a system, you need to invest in the lenses. That is probably the biggest thing that you need to think about, not the camera brands. But I love the A7 IV. Can't fault it. Sure, it has crop at 4K 60. There are workarounds. A7 IV, I recommend. Can't say any more than that. Black Eagle from Uganda. What's up? How you doing? So Nicholas Toff said the Air 2S is great. Absolutely, it is great. It's a 1-inch sensor. It's 12 megapixel 1-inch sensor. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the 12 megapixel. I think the Air 2 did the 48 megapixel or something crazy. It probably was just a quad Bayer sensor, so it's pretty much just like a 12 megapixel upscaled in a way. But yeah, Air 2S is a fabulous drone. Jason probably does squats with heavy camera equipment every day. Sometimes some of the setups are pretty heavy, like even the FX6 is a pretty heavy beast. I've grown on IG2 through Reels. People love BTS. Absolutely, man. BTS is a really, really, really cool thing to show because a lot of people want to understand how you got that shot or what kind of equipment you used to get that shot. Because there are phenomenal creators on Instagram, and a lot of them just post their work, and you're just like, yeah, that looks amazing, but they don't get much traction because people are just really more interested in what goes on behind the scenes rather than what they actually get. But yeah. So the A2S is a 20 megapixel sensor. Thanks, Nick. How's it going with building up this big arms gang with Terry and Peter? Yeah, we are apparently the yoked squad, is what a lot of people are saying. Yeah, we talk all the time, Peter and I, and Terry and I as well. We still yet to collab though. That's the thing. We haven't collabed yet. Okay, Hutch TV said, I have the Sony FX6 and just got the A7 IV as a B cam. I think it's the perfect pick over the FX3, etc. So that is exactly what I did. I've got the FX6 and I chose the A7 IV as a B cam. I had the money for the A7S3 or the FX3, but I didn't choose that because I didn't want the exact same sensor as a B cam, mainly for the fact that I wanted to have the A7 IV as a sharper camera if I wanted to use that as for something else, something very specific. Even for the photo sake, though, as well, because it does take, was it 33 megapixels? Oh my God. Mind blank, 33 megapixel stills. So yeah, over the 12 megapixel stills on the A7S3 and the FX3. So good choice to have the A7 IV as a B cam. If you do have that, A7 IV as an A cam is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. What do you think is a good B cam for the A7 IV? That is a good one. That really depends. So, is the A7 IV your first camera? That's what you probably have to. I suppose that's a big thing. If you're just coming from no camera and the A7 IV is your A cam already and your only cam, then you're pretty much open to anything else. So, a good B cam would potentially be an APS-C camera, so the A6400, the Sony ZV-E10, but it all depends on if you are a photographer or videographer as well. But in terms of photo or video, in terms of video, having an APS-C camera could be a pretty decent B cam, or pick up a used A7 III. That could be a pretty decent B cam as well. Sure, it's only 8-bit. You got 10-bit in there. Colors do take a little bit to match, but that could be a decent option there. Okay, so any more questions? No more questions. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the A7 IV against the FX6 in my last video. So I've been talking super highly with the A7 IV recently, mainly for the fact that it's a 7K sensor downsampled to 4K. It's super crisp, it's sharp, it has very high dynamic range, and the autofocus system is phenomenal. So for pretty much any kind of video use besides sports and wildlife, because of the rolling shutter, it's going to be phenomenal. Sure, it does have that crop in 4K 50 or 4K 60, but you can obviously recompose yourself or use APS-C lenses. So that could be a very big benefit if you do have APS-C lenses, is use them on the A7 IV. But my heart still is with the FX6, although I love the A7 IV. In terms of what videos are going to be coming out, so how long have we been on here? I probably should be wrapping this up soon. 43 minutes, maybe 10 more minutes. In terms of the next videos that are going to be popping up, stay tuned for my Makey video. So if you haven't heard of Makey, fabulous company. They do some incredible things with their cinema lenses. If you haven't used cinema lenses before, the main difference is that the focus throw is much bigger, it's more accurate, and everything is obviously generally all manual. But when it comes to manual focusing, it'll be much smoother when it comes to, that focus as well. Another video that's going to be coming up is the Nisi ProMist filters, or no, sorry, not ProMist, the True Color filters. I've got the ProMist in here, but these ones is going to be coming up. I've just been testing this against the freeware ones and normal no ND filters just to see the difference, because I really want to see if it is True Color. But yeah, I should probably go through all those Instagram questions. I never get through any of those Instagram questions because you guys have always got tons of questions for me, which is great, but I just never get through it. So we get on to Instagram. Is cereal a soup? Bobby Kawaseki? Kaweki? Is cereal a soup? Technically, I guess. That's interesting. Do you like or play video games? Okay, so I don't anymore. I absolutely did growing up. I did a lot of gaming, but yeah, I just can't find time to play games. I do have a 2.5-year-old daughter, so I tend to have a bit more family time when it comes to that. But I do a lot of obviously YouTube work and professional work as well. So my time is kind of limited when it comes to that. And I prefer not to play games. I prefer to, spend it creating videos or playing with my daughter or, having family time sort of thing. Top 5 settings on your Sony camera that you have changed when you got it. So I did a video about all my camera settings, but top 5 settings to change. Top 5 settings to change would be turning auto temp on high. So a lot of people who are getting overheating issues haven't turned that to high, and it's really annoying because that is the first thing that you have to do if you do have the A7 IV. Turn the auto temp off onto high. That's one of the settings. Another setting is this is my own personal sake, but making your shutter button the record button as well. I know the record button is pretty much where the C1 is. So on the A7 IV, the record button is here. I actually prefer the shutter button as a record button. But I suppose that's probably one of the biggest tips when you get the A7 IV is fully customize your buttons how you want it to be, because you want to make it as ergonomically friendly as possible when you're shooting. But usually C3 on the back here is what I put as crop mode. So if I do want to go quickly into crop mode, press C3, puts me into APS-C crop mode. And then the trash can down the bottom, I use as focus mapping. Focus mapping is a great sort of feature to have, especially if you do a lot of manual focusing. But in saying that, focus mapping does not work with cine lenses or manual focus lenses. You need those contact points at the back. So if your lens has the contact points and is a Sony lens, you will most likely be able to use focus mapping. But that is the reason why I got G Master lenses, is because the focus on these G Master lenses are almost linear. It's almost perfectly linear, like a manual focus lens. So by linear, I mean if you have a point, you focus towards it, you focus back, you focus towards it, it's always going to hit that mark, and it won't change depending on how fast you throw that focus or how slow you throw that focus. So that's why I got the G Master lenses predominantly. Okay. Oh, Mad Max, where were you? Let's try and go back through your question. Sorry, would it follow me better without an ND filter on it and not with me? I no idea where your first question came back. What is your question, Max? Yeah, exactly. Please let me know. I'd like to know your question. Pierre said, somehow I feel this Sony cannibalized the A7S III with the A7 IV. Yes and no. Look, the A7S III can shoot 4K 120. It has a 1:1 readout, so it's have really low rolling shutter, and it has extremely high ISO performance. So 12,800 is that second base. And the second base on the A7 IV is 3,200. But they are kind of for different uses. But if you were solely a video shooter, yeah, it's very close. It's very close. I would choose the A7 IV all day, every day. If I didn't need 4K 120, A7 IV all day. But 4K 120 on the A7S III is incredible. It's so buttery smooth. It looks phenomenal. I have the new A7 IV. Do you use screen protectors? So I do use screen protectors, but I don't have one on the A7 IV as yet. I need to order one, but you can see on the A7 III, I do have a screen protector. It's actually cracked in the bottom corner there, but screen protectors are phenomenal because in case you do end up putting excess pressure, that screen protector is there, or scratch the screen. You don't want to scratch the screen in case you do want to, you know, resell your camera after a few years, because technology does tend to get a little bit slow and you may want to upgrade and change cameras. So keeping your camera in nice tip-top condition could be handy. Hello from Russia, Van Gogh. We only started selling 2 weeks ago, A7 IV. Not sure what that means, but hey, hopefully everything is all good in Russia. Been hearing some of the news. Let's move on. Johnny Johansson. Sorry, Johnny Jonason. Is it Jonason? Hopefully. Is the FE 70-200 a dumb idea for video? Got the 28-75 f2.8 and the 55 f1.8, but today is tempted to get more of a unique look. The FE 70-200, I'm assuming you're thinking the G Master 2.8 or f4. Let me know. But the 70-200 is still a pretty decent lens, especially when it comes to video, but the autofocus system is a bit slow. So that's why there is a G2 version in the 70-200 f2.8. They did fix a lot of the issues with focus breathing, chromatic aberration, and autofocus speed. So yeah, it really depends on what you're filming. If you're filming a lot of fast-paced action, you could be in trouble with autofocus, but it really depends on what camera system you're using as well. But yeah, if you want to get it, you can get it. If you don't, you don't. But do you need Ibis as well? Because Tamron do offer the 70-180, which is a fraction of the cost, and it's an f2.8, but it doesn't have OSS in the lens, unfortunately. Yeah, Nicholas said the 70-200 would be an excellent sniper for video. Yeah, it's great for long distance stuff. What is your camera backpack for the A7 IV? Okay, so I've got two camera backpacks that are kind of I go between. I've got the PGY Tech One Go, I think it's called. That's a pretty big backpack, so it's nice and big. It fits my A7 IV and pretty much like 3 lenses, and then I can put the A7 III in there as well. It's a pretty big backpack, or if I go a small backpack, I use the what is it? It's the Low Pro. I'm looking at it right now. I'll bring it over. The Low Pro 350 AW Pro Tactic. This one is a good one. It's a very small, compact one, and if I do have a camera and just a couple of lenses, this is probably my go-to. But if I am carrying a lot of suppose smaller camera gear, I use the PGY Tech one. I say that because I've got the FX6 and I've got a custom-made box for the FX6, and when it comes to the jobs, it depends on what job I'm actually doing. Is what gear I actually bring. So I've got a ton of lighting gear, grip gear, camera gear. It's never ending. It is never ending. It's crazy. Yeah, so that's the camera backpack I use. This is a really good question. Thanks. No Flavor Imaging. Cool name. Do I need more than one camera for commercial video? Absolutely not. Even some cinematographers won't even have a camera. They will hire the camera per job, depending on what job they do. But we're talking bigger budgets, and they have the budget to hire, a Red Gemini or an ARRI Alexa or something. But yeah, it really depends. But majority of the time, you only need one camera. I don't see a need for two cameras unless you're shooting multicam interviews. But and it depends on the commercial. But if you have some pretty high budget action and explosions and stuff, hey, multiple cameras all day. What do you think about the A7 III and the 24-105 and 55 f1.8 Zeiss combo? That's cool. So the 55 1.8 is a very good sharp lens. It's fast, it's cheap. The autofocus is phenomenal. Paired with the A7 III, it's a great camera. A7 III is still, I'm going to keep that till it dies. So keep it forever, as long as I can. But the 24-105 is an f4, so it is a bit of a slow lens. It's not crazy sharp at f4. It definitely does get soft at the edges. It's sharp in the middle, but it's soft at the edges. But it depends on, do you need the wide 24? Do you need the long 105? Or could you invest in a prime 24? And then just get an 85 f1.8. Then you've got 3 primes, but yeah, depends on what you're using it for. It looks like a Russian name. Sorry, I can't bring that up. There we go. That's your question. Do you think so I'll bring up the next one for Bobby Prats. Do you think the heat issue on the A7 IV can be fixed on a software update? I use a dummy battery for now as your advice. Yeah, so using dummy batteries will definitely help with that heating. You shouldn't really have too many heat issues. Definitely flip the screen away from the body. So this is the A7 III, but if you shoot any kind of video, flip the screen away from the body. So you're going to be generating a lot of heat back here up against the screen. So try and flip it away. Try not to cradle the body as much as well. And if you can, obviously, use a dummy battery. That would definitely help. But you shouldn't really get too many heating issues. I did see, was it Pascal Bazal? Man, I talk to him all the time. I forgot his name or pronunciation. But he did a video on the A7 IV and showed the overheating pretty much in Thailand, where it's peak summer, 40 degrees Celsius. Didn't overheat in a room of like from 45 minutes of 4K. So really depends. Gabe Braxton. How you doing, man? Hey, from the east coast of the US, I got an A7 IV and it overheated twice just in navigating the menus. Yeah, okay. So please turn on that overheating temp to high. So go into the settings and it's usually set on standard, change it to high. So a lot of people have been getting this issue a lot. So when they're just going into the settings, but put a lens on, because if you have the lens cap on, that's keeping all the heat in, and you're cradling the body, pull the screen away from the back and you shouldn't get any overheating issues. I've had 0 overheating issues with the A7 IV. So please try that. All right, let's keep going down. Anti-tracks size. Okay. So let's just jump down through the questions, try and answer some questions. Bobby Prats, by the way, I love your videos, man. Lots of followers on here from the Philippines. Cool, man. Hey. I'd love to visit the Philippines one time. That'd be awesome. So you've already changed it a little. It heats up a little bit. Interesting. It still shouldn't overheat, though. Van Gogh says, you have a cool style. You started to look after answering the A7 IV questions and not shy talking about disadvantages of the camera. Absolutely. So every camera has disadvantages. Like I said, my 10,000 Australian dollar cinema camera has disadvantages. And the A7 IV sometimes beats the FX6. And that annoys me a little bit because I paid a lot of money for this. But in saying that, the FX6 does crush the A7 IV in a lot of other departments, but every camera has weaknesses. No camera is perfect. It all depends on the situation and what camera is perfect for that situation. Whoa, whole bunch of questions down here. Yeah. Okay. So I think you really need to look into the Tamron 35 to 150. Not that you'll necessarily need it, but I think your audience will appreciate your comments on that lens. So that is one lens that I want to contact Tamron to send me, because they wanted to send me this a while ago, but I just ran out of time. But I want to try and get my hands on it. It's a 35 to 150. I think it's an f2 to f2.8. So it's quite wide open at for a zoom lens. It's great. But yeah, definitely want to get my hands on that one. Okay, so I'm just sifting through. If you do have any questions on the A7 IV, on the FX3, FX6, A7S III, commercial work, lighting gear, let me know in the comments below. I'd really, really like to know what's in your head and if I can answer any of your questions. Okay. Johnny, we're back. Thanks, Jason, for the input. Yeah, I was thinking the Sony FE70-200 f2.8G. Yeah. So probably check out some of the reviews on that lens in terms of autofocus. But yeah, I've just heard that the autofocus is a bit slow, and that's why they've gone for the G2 version. They've updated it with that one. The 180-degree rule. Cool name. Hello, Jason. Hello, everyone. Okay. Sorry. His name is Bulgarian. Used a video for backup camera A6400. Yeah, okay. So A6400 is a fabulous backup camera for the A7 IV. Definitely, I had that camera. I actually sold that camera to get the A7 IV, which I was actually going to be buying the ZV-E10, but then the A7 IV was released, and I was like putting my money towards that one instead, because obviously APS-C crop mode on the A7 IV. Okay, I'm going to Laos and Thailand to visit my family. I want to bring some kind of lightweight and easy pack gimbal. Easy to pack gimbal. What do you recommend? Got one for you. Oh, excuse the... Oh, sorry. Hit my audio. There we go. We're back. We're good. This one, oh, man. If you can see this one right here, sorry, minus the control arm on it, but this is the Feutech Scorp. This one I've been testing for a few weeks now, and it's actually probably my favorite small compact gimbal at the moment. It's powerful and it does pretty much exactly what I need it to do. It's just great form factor. It's light, and you can do undersling mode really quickly. But this is a phenomenal gimbal. Yet to do a review video on this one as well, but that will be coming soon, because I'm still testing it out and forming my opinions on it. But you know my opinions already right now. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people are afraid to speak even neutrally about cameras. Look, I don't want to fluff around when it comes to my YouTube channel. I want to tell you guys the truth, and I don't want to like stand here and go, you have to buy this because it's great. But it really depends on the person. The A7 IV sometimes won't suit some people. It is what it is. It's not my business. I don't care if you buy it or not. I just want to make sure that you make the right decision and decision for yourself. And I want to look after you guys and, you know, help you guys make the right decision as well. Kevin Rocks, what's up, man? How do you love... Sorry, can't read. How much do you love your FX6? I'd love to buy one, but they're all back ordered. Yeah, the FX6 has been back ordered for absolutely forever. I ran into a guy on set and he had the red Komodo, and he's like, oh man, I absolutely envy you because you have the FX6. He's like, I tried to order the FX6, but it's back ordered for months. So he ended up getting the Komodo, but you know, that's not a bad loss there. If anything, that's a great camera. But yeah, FX6 is phenomenal. Does everything I need in almost every single situation, except for travel. It's very difficult to travel with. That's why I do have the A7 IV. That's generally my travel camera now. Just a lot easier. Okay, let's move on to Mikey G. What have you got? How you doing? New Sony shooter here. Bought the A7 IV, 16 to 35 GM only. After placing my order, I did learn about the gray market lenses. Yeah, okay. Is there a way to tell which version you have? I do believe it is the serial code on there. So there's a website you can type in the serial code and see exactly where it was made. Potentially Google that one. I honestly buy my lenses locally. just to make sure, well, because I can claim it on tax as well as a business expense. But yeah, it really depends. So Carlton, I'm assuming you're talking about the A7IV. Is this camera okay to film with, even if you do event or video work? Wedding work, sorry. If it's the A7IV, absolutely. You can almost do anything, event, weddings. So probably perfect for weddings because it is a photo and video camera. Oh, thank you. Have a good day. Yeah, okay. So K Varpen, this is a really good one. So the remake of the 85 f1.8 GM would be nice. So I do have the 85 f1.4. Oh, sorry, f1.4. And I do believe they're making an f1.2 in the G Master lens. So I don't think they're going to be bringing out a Mark II f1.4. They'll probably one up it and do an f1.2. Just because they know they screwed up with that lens. Autofocus is slow. It's big and heavy. There's some pretty bad chromatic aberration in it, and it's quite soft as well for a G Master lens. It's quite an old lens, but it does have its problems. Johnny, favorite focal length? I did an Instagram reel on that one. 35mm is my favorite focal length. Absolutely love it. On full frame. Even on APS-C 35, it turns into about a 50mm. It's not bad, but sometimes 50 is too tight. You can't go wide enough. But 35 is great because it's wide enough where you can push in and not get too much distortion in the face as well. Mikey said, what card setup do you shoot video with? So I use pretty much the Pro Grade V90 cards or the Sony CF Express Type A cards as well. So I'm going to have to wrap this up soon. I'll just try and scan through the rest of the questions. So what else? Ryan seems like a new guy here. How you doing? Should I come up with a company name? My first. Yeah, it really depends. So if you're trying to brand yourself as a business, as a company, obviously have some sort of company name. But if you're trying to brand yourself as a freelancer, just use your name because then people absolutely know you for you rather than you for your business. And it's kind of hard to try and separate your business name and yourself because I think, yeah, it's kind of a tough situation there. Okay, so I might wrap this up. If there are any other last questions, throw them through. I'll try and go through some of these other ones. Here we one here. Is Samyang 50 f1.4 a good lens compared to the 85mm? Good question. I haven't got my hands on the Samyang 50 f1.4. I'd love to though, but I'll get onto that. Okay. Gabe's talking. Yeah, absolutely. Talk amongst each other in the comments. Here we go. Richard, dreaming of pairing my A7IV with an A7S4 when it comes out. Yeah, A7S4 would be interesting because you would imagine we would have to have a higher resolution sensor being Sony's video camera. So could it be a 6K or 8K sensor when the A7S4 comes out? If it comes out, we don't know if they're actually making any new ones yet, but that's interesting. Anyway, I might wrap that up, guys. I hope you found this video useful. It's good to catch up with you guys. I'm trying to keep this below an hour. We're an hour 10 minutes. But yeah, if you found this useful, can you give this video a thumbs up? Is that a thing? Can't remember. This is my second live, so I'm going to be doing one live per month for the rest of this year. So 12 lives just to catch up with you guys. And sometimes it's just super hard to reply back into your comments, but please do comment on my videos because I do read all the comments and I try and obviously just give it a thumbs up or a heart. but replying to the comments, if you can imagine, like replying to 100 comments every day does take a long time. So please keep commenting. I do read them, and I'll try and address some of these in the lives, but also in my videos as well. But yeah, stay safe, stay golden, stay golden. I'll see you in the next one. All right, let's get it.